We're talking about the financial sector of the economy. The financial sector has to do with money and banking. So we're, again, transitioning out of fiscal policy into monetary policy from a Keynesian perspective more to a monetarist perspective. So help me out here. From your background of ancient history, before there was a United States, before there were governments, what was used as money? Is there any illustrations of what was used for money? Any? I'll write it down if you can think of any. Can't think of any. What were used for trade? I got one for you. Remember when the Pilgrims came over to this country and they were trading with the Indians and there were some shells that they were, what did they call that? Wampum? Oh, somebody remember wampum? Okay. Wampum would be a form of money. What else could be used as a form of money? Other than seashells, pretty seashells. Oh, if I said, oh, you're so pecuniary minded. No, you're so money minded. It goes all the way back to, I think, cows or something, because when they would trade cows or heifers or something, is where we got that word from. If you go back, and I don't know if it's Latin or what the derivation of that word is. Can anybody think of an ancient money that goes back at least a couple thousand years? How about metals? Yes, I see nods. Lead. Lead? I don't remember lead. Sorry. How about nickel? No, I don't remember nickel either. Think precious metals and what comes to mind? Oh, gold and silver. So has gold and silver been used? I'll write that one down. So they're precious metals. There was a mine somewhere, Turkey, someplace like that, where there was trading in a particular mixture of gold and silver which came out of local mines, and it was called electrum. And then they would weigh it, and then the king would put his stamp into it so that we could use that gold and silver mixture, as a more efficient kind of money. On the in the South Pacific, I think there's some islands there that they use chiseled out round stones. Sometimes if you're observant when you drive down the road, you'll see some houses that have a tree. In front of the tree is a round stone like this, big thick old round stone, and it'll have a little square in the center of it. It'll be leaned up against a tree. Anybody ever seen that? No? Well, in the South Pacific, in these islands, they would get their outrigger boats, and they would go over to this one island where they had this kind of stone, and they would chip it out into round stones, and put a square hole in it, and then they would take it back, and they would trade with yop stones. And they had different sizes for different denominations, and if I want to buy your pig or something, then I would take my yop stone and I roll it over to your house, and you have the yop stone, and I get to take the pig. And so it would be a means of transferring wealth. Now, obviously, you can't run off the island. Maybe you can, but yop stones was used as money. So I'm just trying to come up with some historical background to give you a feel for the idea that money existed before formal civil governments came into the picture. That people used something called money, And as a definition, we would just simply say money is the most commonly traded asset. Money is simply the most commonly traded assets. We couldn't get rid of money if we wanted to. There are some places that outlaw the use of money. You're not allowed to have money, and I'm thinking of a prison environment where they're not allowed to trade. They're not allowed to deal. You get caught dealing, you're a bad prisoner. You're going to go in the hole, or you're going to take away some commissary privileges or something. You're not allowed to carry on transactions. The state will give you your food and give you your clothes and all you need, and you're not supposed to be in business while you're inside prison. But does that stop people from trading? They're going to trade. Hey, I got an extra tube of toothpaste. You got some extra socks. Can I trade my toothpaste for your socks? So even though the warden would outlaw and keep out of their possession any sort of American dollars or anything like that, does that stop people from trading? And the answer is no. For us to trade is almost as natural as for us to breathe. I mean, you got a whole big tree full of peaches over there, and I got a big tree versus apples over here, and I'm tired of apple pie. Would you like to trade some of your peaches for my apples? That's just as natural as going to a baseball game and hot dogs and cherry pie or something. That's just part of human nature. So money has existed as the most commonly traded asset. Every textbook tells us what money does. And this textbook is the same. It tells us that it is a medium of exchange. It is a unit of account. And it is a store of wealth. A medium of exchange. As the most frequently traded asset, in every transaction, money goes one direction and the goods go the other direction. When we were defining price earlier in the course, we said price is simply an exchange rate. How many dollars do I have to give the gas station in order to get 1 gallon of gas? That is a price, that is an exchange rate. And every exchange that we do in our market economy, money is 1/2 of the exchange. Money is a big deal because it's the most frequently traded item, because it gets traded every time anything else gets exchanged. So it's a medium of exchange. It's also a unit account. How much is something worth compared to something else? And we have to compare it to some benchmark. And this benchmark of value is called dollars in our economy. And the more dollars it takes to acquire something in an exchange, the more valuable that item is in comparison to some other item that doesn't take as many dollars to get one of those. So we use it as a unit of account. And finally, the third thing that money does is it serves as a store of value. As a store of value. In other words, I've got purchasing power. Maybe I earned it from mowing lawns, or maybe I traded for something else. But I want to have a vacation coming up. In order for me to afford that vacation, I've got to store up some purchasing power. And we tend to store up that purchasing power in what we call money. Now, what I'm pointing out here is that money is, in an economy, as natural as a human being is to breathe. It just happens. And you don't have to tell anybody to do it. And actually, you don't have to pass any laws to have money. Money will simply be the most commonly traded asset. Now, what money does is different than what money is. What money is. At least one textbook says today, money is whatever people believe to be money and what people are willing to accept as money. That's certainly true in the face of it, but I think it goes much deeper than that. We do have laws, as we talk about legal tender laws here in a little bit later on as we get down through our list. And that's different than lawful money, which is money that is recognized and standardized by the government, versus money that is decreed to be used, which we call legal tender. So what are some of what's the first kind of money? Well, we said that obviously gold and silver have been used as money, and that gives us our first historical category of money. And that first historical category is called commodity money. It was some sort of tangible, physical good. You could recognize it. It had mass. Gravity pulls against it. You could weigh it. So why is it that we, as a society, no matter what civilized age we were living in, why did people choose the commodity that they wanted as money? Why did the people in the islands of South Pacific choose yop stones? Why did some people choose animals like pigs or cows? Or why did American Indians pick pretty seashells? To this day, in Tibet, yak dung is still used as a money. It's exchanged. It's a valuable thing. You cook your meals with it, for one thing. It's a valuable source of energy, fertilizer, etc. Kind of hard for us to imagine, but we buy fertilizer, I think, right? And I know some gardeners that age the stuff and mulch the stuff and all this sort of stuff. So it has value. So why did societies pick what they picked? I'm going to list 5 different elements for commodity money. 5 different elements for commodity money. 1, whatever people pick, for it to be money, it has to be relatively durable. Relatively durable. Salt has been used as money. Would salt make a very good, durable money in the state of Ohio in the summer that we're experiencing now? Could it? Is it very durable? If you've got a bowl of salt and you set it on the kitchen counter and you just leave it there overnight, or maybe a day or two, on a hot, humid day, you look at your bowl of salt and what are you going to find? Anybody? A bowl of salt water. It's just going to turn into salt water. It's going to absorb the moisture out of the air. Well, what happened to my salt? This doesn't look like salt anymore. Well, you're going to have to put it in the oven and pull all the moisture out of it to get your salt back. Okay? But in the Middle East, where it's very arid and dry, yes, salt was a very valuable commodity, and it could be used as money quite easily, but not in Ohio. How about iron? Iron has been used as money in different places of Africa. Iron's fairly durable, where salt is not. Let me give you an illustration that I remember. When I was in college, we were having a little dispute in a place called Vietnam, and American soldiers were there, and you were either for us or against us, as President Bush II used to say often, and the Vietnamese people had to make a decision. Are you going to be for the Americans? Are you going to be against them? And it was quite often a life and death matter. And when the American troops were withdrawing, a sad state in American history where we don't fight wars to win anymore. We fight them for political reasons, and when politics changes, we just kind of leave. The fact is, they're not wars anymore. They're called police actions, so they're not actually wars. So it wasn't actually a Vietnam War or a Korean War. We haven't had a war since World War II. It's a police action, and so it's a military world policeman sort of thing. So when they were leaving, the Vietnamese people who were friendly to and helpful to the Americans, they were in a real bind. Because when the American troops leave, they didn't have a good reputation with everybody else who was coming in and going to be taking over and running the show. So they had to leave. And one of the individuals that left came from a fairly wealthy family. He was an undergraduate engineer, and they just had to just leave, just go, just one of the boat people, just get away. And so he had to take as much wealth as he could. He came over here to Ohio and was working as an engineer, really an engineering technician, the company I was at. And we couldn't pay him a whole lot because he couldn't speak English, but he knew the language of mathematics very well, and we could use him for doing calculations as long as we could kind of explain what it is or show a picture of it. He'd get the idea, and he was learning some broken English, and we could pay him as a technician. But he had to get his money out of South Vietnam, and what he did was he converted it to gold, and gold is very, very malleable, and so he just beat it down very, very thin because it bends and that sort of stuff, and he would put it in the hem of the bottom of his pants. They put it inside of his belt. He took his shoes apart and put it inside of his shoes because he could take more purchasing power out of that country with him on the boat over here to get to America that way than any other way that he could get any wealth out of the country. It's a sad thing to be in, but the point was he picked that ancient kind of metal because gold is very, very durable. Very durable. There's hardly any acid, I think aqua regia or something like that, that will interact with it. If you take something to a pawn shop, a wedding ring or something like that, and they say, oh, can we test this? And they'll scrape it a little bit, and they'll put some sort of high acid on it, high sulfuric acid or something like that. And if it just kind of goes, it just kind of, here's your ring back. We don't want to buy that one. It's not really gold. And we wear the stuff because it doesn't react with hardly anything. And we put it in our mouth for crowns, and we wear it. It doesn't react. If you put copper on your arm, it pretty soon turns green and all those sorts of things from the salts, etc. But gold is extremely durable. Salt doesn't work out very well. So as we go through these 5 elements, and the first one is durability, we're going to see that whatever a society finds that has the greatest degree of these 5 characteristics, people naturally choose to use a money that has more characteristics like this than other commodities at their disposal. We'll pick up with this durability and the next category in the next session.